Hi, my name is Hector Duran, and this is my presentation regarding my Human Resource and Staff Management Plan for Amor y Corazon for Education and Empowerment. Um, just to kind of give you guys a synopsis as to the idea of Amor y Corazon for Education and Empowerment, it actually is an initiative that I came up with back when I was about 18 years old. So this was about, wow, 25 years ago or so. Um, but it was based on a modality of programs that were aimed at reaching adolescents at risk in the areas of teen pregnancy prevention and gang intervention type of programs. Through the evolution of my own career path, I've been modifying it over many years, and really it's become something that has been dear to me, and I hope that at some point after graduating with my master's that I continue working on this, whether it's continuing with ASI, which is what it's called. It's the acronym for Amor y Corazon for Education and Empowerment. And I'll go more into detail as to what ASI means in Spanish, so that way you get certain translation. The word amor is love, and corazón is heart. And basically what that means is heart and love for education and empowerment. And that's basically everything that embodies who I am, and what has driven me over the course of the last almost 25 years in working in social services and behavioral health. And now has really caused me to make changes to work in HR management so that I can actually have the skills I need to hopefully one day run my own organization. But anyways, I'm going off. The mission of Amor y Corazon for Education and Empowerment is to significantly improve the mental health and well-being of all members of the community through psychiatry, counseling, education, support, and advocacy, with an emphasis on patience and dignity, all in the efforts of helping those in need achieve recovery as they define it. It's important that people, I know that human resources is a complete deviation into what social services are. However, I believe that in order for someone in HR to understand fully the business of mental health, they need to really understand the business of people and those that we serve. For the last 15 years, I've worked in the capacity of mental health, and I've actually provided direct care services working on assertive community treatment teams, which is basically what this plan is in regards to, which is going to be hopefully a sub program of ASI and what we plan to do with ASI moving forward in the future. The vision of ASI is to provide innovative approaches to assist those deemed seriously mentally ill by providing evidence-based principles encompassed by the ideologies of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, aka SAMHSA, their Assertive Community Treatment Team Act model. By including aspects of art therapy inclusive of performance, visual, and literary arts, ASI's, pronounced ASI, which is a Spanish word that translates to like this or so it is, approach it to revolutionize overall wraparound services to establish complete and successful community integration built on the principles of recovery in hopes of helping reducing stigmas of mental illness while reducing behaviors indicative that inhibit an individual's capacity to heal, recover, and prosper. That's a long thing to say, but basically in a nutshell, this is the same vision that I had even when I was 18 years old and I came up with the idea of ASI. ASI was basically an evolution to help individuals achieve their best and utilize what was at their fingertips. Oftentimes I find working with individuals with mental illness and even working with at-risk youth earlier in my career, they were always driven by the arts. So I have always been compelled to really integrate some form of arts therapy when I was a substance abuse counselor and specialist working on assertive community treatment teams to really get members, engage them in areas of recognizing their triggers and also being able to further really go over a lot of their mindsets and behaviors and learn to reflect on these things. So the vision has basically been very consistent with everything that I've done thus far. So again, the acronym ASI, Amor y Corazón for Education Empowerment, is pronounced ASI. I know most individuals see it and they expect it to, the expectation is to pronounce it ACE. Again, the aspect of it is to really encompass my own cultural pride and beliefs. But the meaning of así in English is basically so it is. This phrase is much more empowering in Spanish. It provides more of a lift to the internal soul that extends the message that one can overcome just like that, and so it shall be. So I hope that moving forward, when I say así, you guys really get the heart of what it means. ASI's workforce has approximately currently 82 employees with operations throughout the state of Arizona, providing direct care and intensive case management services with 5 assertive community treatment teams in operations to serve rural communities that include Yavapai, Mojave, Pinal, and Pima counties. Along with my role as Chief Executive Director and the Finance Director, the HR's duties are managed by the Director of Human Resources, with the overall function being to oversee the day-to-day activities within the organization, including tracking all the payroll and HR-related expenditures within the workforce to better serve and care for the employees, ensuring both the needs of the employee and the company is held with the greatest of regard. ASI's driving force is the people, both the individuals that work for ASI and the individuals that we serve. Because people are the driving force behind ASI LLC, the agency must have HR management practices that are fair, pragmatic, and visible to the workforce staff. Defining and documenting these practices, according to Newman, Gerhard, and Milkovich, helps keep a project's most important resource engaged and enabled to participate fully in successfully completing the project. Now, the operations of the ACT teams, and just to kind of give you guys a little synopsis or background on ACT teams, it's an evidence-based practice that has been initiated and supported by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. ASI, LLC, and Staff Management Plan describes the processes and procedures used to staff these assertive community treatment teams for the purpose of fulfilling contractual obligations with the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment Systems, or ACCESS, state Medicaid program to serve those determined to be diagnosed with a serious mental illness. Its scope includes administrative and clinical roles and responsibilities, project organization, HR policy, staffing estimation, staff management processes, staff skill sets, staff acquisition, staff development, and performance monitoring. The HR and Staff Management Plan is intended to be a living document reviewed and updated as needed. ASI's Human Resources and Staff Management Plan, and basically at the cusp of the organization, my role, the Finance Director's role, and the Human Resources Director's role is to provide overall administrative duties to build up the organization and establish more teams statewide and beyond, with considerations being made to influence markets in rural and underserved communities in California, New Mexico, Nevada, Texas, and Colorado, targeting minority communities and expanding outward the assertive community treatment team models. Actually, having lived in Texas and New Mexico along with Arizona, and having family in California in which I frequented, the rural areas are often the underserved communities in the United States. For example, Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is near and dear to my heart, along with El Paso, Texas, there are a cluster of communities known as colonias, which are basically underserved communities in which have, for instance, lack of potable water. I mean, it's pretty much third world conditions in a first world setting. Most individuals that would go there would probably be shocked and surprised to see these still existed. But again, in knowing a lot of the lack of services that exist in rural communities, I feel compelled to find these services that would best assist adequately these rural communities in areas of mental health services, and actually being able to escalate those services to the most assertive level, which would be the assertive community treatment teams, providing these wraparound services for individuals who have a diagnosis, SMI diagnosis, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychotic disorders, mood disorders of sorts, and to help them learn to live their life, but also gain a quality of life, and also learn to live a life without stigma, and understanding that they're not really in in complete control of everything, but they can find a place and a sense of recovery to help them best guide their lives. The acting clinical staff management piece is very important to ASI. Below my role and the financial director as well as the human resources director, all teams will include a licensed professional to serve as the primary clinical team lead to establish the overall functionality of the program, to include the recruitment, training, service planning, service delivery, and clinical guidelines while also managing facilities. The team lead will be allowed to hire 5 clinical staff to serve in the capacity of specialties in areas of substance use, housing and living skills support, employment and rehabilitation, peer support, and a program assistant to help manage program finances and HR duties. This does not include the medical team, which is indicative of the BHMP or the medical provider psychiatrist, as well as the registered nurse. The medical team will be employed and contracted by the administration, utilizing technological resources to allow for telemedicine prescribers and rotating registered nursing staff between counties. Basically, ASI has 2 statuses of employees. You have your exempt and non-exempt. The exempt employees basically are compensation for those deemed to be licensed clinicians, medical staff, or administrative roles. The pay is basically reserved for these clinicians serving on this capacity of substance abuse counselor or substance abuse specialist when they have certifications and licensures to provide counseling equivalent and not restricted to the LSAT, LISAC, LISAC, or LASAC in strict accordance to Arizona revised statutes and federal law. Also under the category will be assigned registered nurses and, of course, the behavioral health professionals, team leads, and the RNs. The non-exempt employees are basically the employees that, the non-exempt employees are basically the employees that receive fair competitive wages, but are calculated on an hourly basis and require overtime payment for work in excess of 40 hours per week. Overtime is 1.5 times the hourly rate. The employees deemed non-exempt would be those providing direct care services but are not licensed. These staff would also be the rotation workforce used for on-call and will be provided an additional $100 per week when answering crisis calls for members on an ACT team, as well as will be provided overtime if it requires to go out in person to handle these crises accordingly. These non-exempt positions include the Housing and Quality Standards Specialist, the Employment and Rehabilitation Specialist, the Peer Support Specialist, and the Office Assistant. There is also what we would like to include at some point is a Roving Benefits Specialist. The roving specialist, only 2 would be provided to basically travel between other teams, but basically they would assist individuals to apply for Social Security benefits and additional entitlements and benefits that patients may be eligible for. These roving benefits specialists, along with peer support, employment and rehabilitation, and housing and quality standards, would be eligible for the on-call crisis. The office assistant, because it's not a clinical position, would not be eligible for that. However, again, I mean, there are additional ways in which the entire team will receive bonuses, and that's something that I'd like to highlight moving on. Raises and bonuses, incentives, are very important to us, and especially establishing that our employees are very important to us, and we want to make sure that we show them that. The employer's performance management system is usually what drives a compensation plan's salary increases. Employees receive annual raises based on performance, ranking, and ratings. ASI's raise and bonus systems is pretty simple. Right now, in order for you to get a bonus or a raise, the assessments and treatment plans must be at a 90% completion rate. Face-to-face encounters must be at a completion of 90%, meeting all assertive community treatment team requirements based on SAMHSA regulations and fidelity, to which participant is to receive 2 or more hours of quality service time provided to them in a specific area to be indicated in their treatment plan, and to not exclude substance abuse counseling or support, peer mentoring, establishing meaningful community activities, housing, increasing skills in the area of independent living skills, seeking employment, application for disability and state-sponsored entitlements, i.e. Medicaid, SNAP food program, and making recommendations in areas of integrated health and wellness, counseling and therapy, and assisting members by providing peer-to-peer coaching. The billable units are to be achieved at 100%, with 400 units or more being billed for on a monthly basis. And we also are expected to have a no-show rate with BHMPs and RNs maintained below 10%. That is how an employee of ASI will basically acquire a raise and a bonus moving forward. That's not to say that if the individual doesn't meet the current performance measures that they're not going to get a raise. But again, those individuals that exceed those numbers would be eligible for the raise and probably the bonus, both individual and team performance bonus. For the current performance measures, the state requires that all assessments and treatment plans be at an 85% completion rate, meaning that the entire caseload is at 85%. Clinical team must adhere to the ACT team fidelity requirements and meet with members in the community, at home, or in the clinic at least 4 times a week, again with at least 2 hours of quality time. The more time being spent, of course, that's the basis for the raise that I just spoke about. Substance abuse counseling is a necessity, and it must take place at least once a week in a group session that goes for at least 2 hours, and additional one-to-one sessions provided at least for an hour a week for members with co-occurring disorders. That is something highlighted for those substance abuse counselors who provide these services, whether they do groups twice a week, and then they do a couple of one-to-ones with members. The other thing that I also really push for ACT teams to consider is taking members out into the community and acclimating them to their local AANA meetings and obtain a sponsor so that they can build the natural supports that they require. ACT team specialists must adhere to spending at least 80% of their time in the field meeting the members where they are at, while the team lead must adhere to at least 50% of their time in the field. This is fidelity measure. This is a requirement for SAMHSA, and this is part of those fidelity requirements that are heavily audited by Access and the Regional Behavioral Health Authority here in Maricopa County, or all over the counties of Arizona. All members must see the BHMP once a month, and RN services are to be provided where the members requires them to be. That means if again, we're utilizing telemedicine, the RNs must go wherever the member's at and meet them where they're at. That's the whole purpose of an ACT team, so that they have access to their doctor and to the nurses to ensure that they're being taken care of and medications are being provided, and that if any side effects are occurring, these doctors and nurses are able to respond to them immediately and get the assistance that they need. Members who are incarcerated or hospitalized must be seen within 24 hours of their admission, with the visits to be completed every 72 hours until their discharge. Once discharged, the team must provide members with 5-day face-to-face follow-up, ensuring contact is being made with the member to further offer and provide direct care services. Members must also be seen by the BHMP within 24 hours of their discharge, with weekends excluded. Per Access, contractual obligations, and SAMHSA fidelity requirements, the current measures that are required per contract were as I stated. These performance measures are tracked by myself and the team leads, ensuring that the individual and overall team performance measures are maintained per Access and SAMHSA requirements. Required staffing, skills, competencies to ensure performance. We're constantly wanting to build up the capacity for our team members, knowing that in helping to increase their performance, we also want to build that capacity to also make them more confident about themselves and their abilities, A, and B, hopefully being able to retain them here with the company. The required staffing, skills, and competencies to ensure these performances are basically that team building, customer service, conflict management, management and supervisory skills that's offered to the team leads, competency building, learning new skills, coaching and counseling, online education and training opportunities, which is also a mandatory thing with our contractual agreements with Access, personal development topics, listening skills, time management, and diversity management. And there's another component that we actually have integrated that we want to continue, and that's that of cultural awareness and sensitivity. I'm leery to utilize such language. I firmly believe that ASI carries with itself the pride of seeing no color, seeing no gender, seeing everyone as one human being, and being able to help one another. But again, we know that there's a constant need to address these issues that do come to light, not only for the members that we serve, but for the employees that are there. Oftentimes, there are employees that get hired and they don't understand the population that we work with, and it's sometimes can be a scary population to provide services to. But again, it's one of those things where we want to ensure that they're treated as human beings with the same dignity and respect afforded to any and all people, but especially by those that we hire. For all clinical competencies, ASI will defer to all SAMHSA compliance measures for clinicians involved in the treatment and care of patients enrolled in assertive community treatment teams, and will regard all protocol measures and fidelity measures set forth in ACT team practices. Furthermore, ASI will provide continued support and training in areas to build up capacity in the areas of rapport building, motivational interviewing, suicide risk assessment, service planning, and any additional functions related to the clinical positions in which the team leads will uphold their responsibility to ensure these measures are fulfilled in their entirety. Now, I stated that we want to retain our workforce, but we also understand that at some point they do move on and they do go on to bigger, better things. So for us, it is important for us to maintain an acquisition strategy and development plan at all times to ensure that we have ongoing efforts to recruit. ASI administrators have affirmed the process for confirming resource availability as well as for obtaining commitments to assemble the varying teams, with focus being made on the position of the team lead to ensure they are in the primary role to recruit new clinical staff. What that means is basically we want to focus as administrators on that team lead position so that they can, because of their awareness and knowledge of their communities and specific counties, they can then move forward with a recruitment strategy that is completely supported by the HR director as well as the HR subsidiary that we utilize for further HR assistance. When acquiring staff, the team lead must assess whether the potential candidates or current employees possess the required skills to perform assigned responsibilities, document all skill gaps, as well as include the proposed development activities required to overcome these deficiencies. The HR and team leads will establish a plan to further assess whether staff members require any training to completely fulfill their project duties and further maintain state-mandated training per access contractual obligations. Some projects may require team members to be trained in specific technologies or patient-specific solutions. If anticipated team members do not have the required level of competency, identifying the training required and including the training costs in the role and function of the HR director in conjunction with that finance director and CED to establish these baseline projected costs. Our efforts again are to continue to recruit and retain workforce. We seek access to the very best talent while also controlling the direct impact on business profits and growth by maintaining the current workforce and retaining them as part of the overall structure of ASI. In doing so, ASI is dedicated to establishing ongoing recruitment strategies, developing training and capacity building programs to maintain current talent, establish strict performance measures to ensure continued profitability and positive outcomes, and establishing a compensation package that further provides employees with the opportunity to earn more through incentivized initiatives to ensure these measures are maintained above the established standards. So basically what ASI does is basically at this time we work with those individuals who are SMI and we are recruiting staff constantly who have not only the heart and the love and the desire to work with these individuals, but to also see them as human beings and to work with them as human beings. That pretty much covers my presentation on the overall staff management, HR staff management plan that we have submitted. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My name again is Hector Duran. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.